Hey guys, Todd Anders here alongside,
Brian Brown doing?
and we're here playing some Battle for Zendikar Standard.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be doing some deck techs on some new decks. I guess we'll just go ahead and get right into it and talk about the decks before we actually get to the matches. Top down. So, if you look at this deck, it doesn't really have too many Battle for Zendikar cards in it.
It's got one.
It does have one in the main deck and a few in the sideboard.
Smoldering Marsh.
So, for those of you who've been playing Standard over the last few months, you know that Mardu Dragons is a thing. You know, there's also been Black-Red Dragons. Basically, this is just that style of deck, but without Stormbreath Dragons since it rotated out. Now, some of you may complain that I'm not using X card or Y card, but I assure you that when we're making this video, we did not have very many cards spoiled for Battle for Zendikar.
Yeah, there are like 70 cards spoiled, and like 30 of them are basic lands. So.
Yeah, and a lot of them are just giant colorless creatures that look cool for limited and not really so much for constructed. But we do have a lot of decks coming up later in the week that will feature some new cards, and Brian's deck also features a lot of new cards. But I wanted to start in a place that took more of a look at what the format looks like post rotation, more so what we have left as opposed to what's new.
Sure.
And I think that Khan's block still has a ton of stuff, as well as Origins, that is going to be really good in the new standard, and this deck really highlights that. You know, it's much like playing a Green Devotion deck right after Magic Origins came out. Like, sure, it didn't really get that many new cards, but it was still very good.
Yeah, like you don't always need new cards if the existing strategy is just powerful.
Yeah, so since the format shrunk considerably by about 3 sets or so, or two or three sets, I think.
2 sets. 3 sets.
Yeah, it shrunk by like 3 sets. I think that's going to make cards that exist that are really powerful, they're going to be spotlighted a little more. I wouldn't be surprised if early on in the season, almost every single deck played 3 to 4 Hangerback Walker. This card is just phenomenal against aggressive strategies. It's versatile in when you can cast it, and you know it works well in a lot of situations. I'm really looking forward to seeing how people utilize this in a number of different strategies. In this one, we have it alongside a singleton copy of Collateral Damage and 2 copies of Pia and Kiran Nalar to be able to sacrifice it and make a bunch of tokens, and then we have 2 copies of Sorin and 2 copies of Kolaghan Storm's Fury to really make the tokens hit hard. Now, the rest of the deck is your normal Mardu Dragon's Fair. We have 4 Soulfire Grandmaster, 4 Thunderbreak Regent. We have 1 copy of Secure the Waste because it works so well in conjunction with Sorin and Kolaghan. It's also just a weird one-of that your opponent might not expect. You know, if they know your deck list, they're going to have to respect it at certain points. But for the most part, it just has too much synergy with Sorin and Kolaghan to not consider it at all.
It's also Bile-Blight is rotating out. So
yeah, I think a lot of the token generators are going to be better now that Bile-Blight is gone. You know, I think like Dragon Fodder, Hordling Outburst, those kind of cards could make a big comeback, especially if spot removal is going to be huge.
yeah, Bile-Blight and Drown are both gone. There's still Languish, but who knows how many people are going to be playing that card.
Yep. As far as the removal spells go, we got 4 Wild Slash, 4 Draconic Roar, 4 Crackling Doom, all of which work incredibly well with Soulfire Grandmaster. Draconic Roar is going to have a few less dragons in this version than it used to, but I still think that it's better than Lightning Strike for the most part. You know, we could try to fit in some random dragons over Pia and Kiran, but I really like the synergy between these two. But Crackling Doom is just an all-star, and it's going to be really, really strong in the coming weeks, I
Is
believe.
Lightning Strike even legal anymore?
Yeah, it was in Magic Origins, I think.
I don't think it was.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got Draconic Roar, so well, I'm glad I didn't put that in my deck. 2 Outpost Siege to help us grind out the long games. There's a little bit of synergy with this and Hangerback Walker's tokens if you are in the business of choosing dragons, you know, against like a Languish deck or what have you.
I mean, this is a dragon deck.
Yeah.
Pretty much, you should be choosing dragons, right?
Sure.
Just on flavor alone, like.
No, dog, that ain't me.
All right.
The mana base, fairly straightforward. We're playing 8 copies of the Pain Lands just because we have a lot of colorless symbols in our deck to not take so much damage. But when we want to cast our spells like Crackling Doom, we need to be able to. So that's why we have the full 8 of that. We have 4 Bloodstained Mire, which can fetch out Smoldering Marsh as well as Mountain and Swamp. We have 1 copy of Evolving Wilds to go along with the 4 Nomad Outposts to give us like basically 5 coming to play tapped Tri-lands, and I'm not sure if Evolving Wilds is actually good enough in the deck. It's possible it should just be one of the gain life lands like Windscarred Crag, Bloodfell Caves, or whatever the other one is.
Scoured Barrens.
Scoured Barrens. But we have an Evolving Wilds for now. And then 2 copies of Haven of the Spirit Dragon to get back Kolagon and Thunderbreak Regent. Now, Haven's going to be a little worse in this version than it was in the Stormbreath Dragon version just because Stormbreath Dragon had haste. And, the overall power level of this deck is just shrinking a little bit because of the lack of Stormbreath Dragon, but I don't think that can really be helped.
Yeah, but like even still, it still looks almost relatively like other than Stormbreath Dragon, it doesn't lose that much, and Kolaghan is just an extremely powerful card that's in some cases better than Stormbreath Dragon.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, that is the main deck. Let's go and take a look at the sideboard, and then we'll get to Brian's deck. So we got a pretty pumpkin spice sideboard. It's fairly basic. We have, a lot of cards that are just generically good sideboard cards. First of all is the 4 Ration Clerics. I think this card is just going to be a 3 or 4 of in most white strategy sideboards just because of how powerful it is against mono-red strategies. It can come in a number of different matchups where your opponent is trying to use things like Flame, or I was going to call it Flame of the Firebrand. What's it called? Exquisite Firecraft. Things like that are just trying to burn you out. It also just has a reasonable body against most of the creatures out of the red decks.
Yeah.
We have 3 copies of Silk Wrap. I think that the Abzan aggro decks are going to be really popular. Silk Wrap takes care of Hangerback Walker nicely while also making sure that, Dromoka's command isn't that big of a deal. Since if they make you sacrifice Silk Wrap, the Hangerback Walker comes back as a 0/0, so it doesn't really hurt you that much. Silk Wrap also just a good answer to Anafenza, any other, 1, 2, and 3 casting cost creatures that could give you some trouble. 4 Duress for the control decks. I think Duress is going to be filling a pretty big gap that Thoughtseize is leaving behind.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I think that it's possible that Duress could end up being main deckable, but in this strategy, I have a lot to do early in the game, so I don't think I actually need the Duresses to bridge the gap. We have 2 copies of Radiant Flames as the new sweeper from Battle for Zendikar. It has Converge, which is kind of cool. I'm interested to see how often I'm going to just pay 3 red for it to do it for like 1 damage to everything to like not kill my Soulfire Grandmaster, not kill like my 1/1 Hangerback Walker and stuff like that, or just for 2, to save my Ration Cleric.
You can also use Painlands as a good way to provide a color or colorless.
Yeah. So it should be interesting to see there. We have 2 copies of Obnixilus Reignited. He lost his spark. He got it back.
Yeah.
He's pretty bad, man. He's good. I like both of his starting abilities, and his ultimate's kind of cool. But for the most part, he's just a 5-mana Doomblade when he comes in, and then for the rest of the game, he's probably just going to tick up and draw you a bunch of cards.
Yeah, I love Obnixilus. I liked the original one in Zendikar block. The one from Core Set a couple years ago was less exciting, but
yeah, what are you gonna do?
I'm pretty happy to see that he's back in Planeswalker form, and he is certainly reigniting my love for 5-mana Planeswalkers. Yeah.
I think he's fairly comparable to something like Vraska. Like, obviously, Vraska was really strong because she could come down and kill Planeswalkers or, like, Detention Sphere to unlock your things that had been shut down. But Obnixilus has the upside of just being able to come down and draw cards on an empty board.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a really powerful tool against control decks. I think that there are going to be a lot of decks that can main deck him, but this Dragon deck has a really heavy curve already. So I want to make sure that he was on the board for this style of deck, and he can come in that matchup after we get like Duresses, and we're able to change our deck significantly. Like, we're going to be bringing out like a bunch of removal spells against them and whatnot. So, all right, guys, well, that's all for the Mardu Dragons deck that I'll be playing today. Stay tuned. Check the video right below to see Brian's deck tech. We'll be right back.